You are listening to the Marc Guzman podcast experience. Okay, so I want to get your opinion on this. As somebody who works on cures and vaccines, what do you think of the current anti-vaccination?
That's so.
I want to get your opinion on it
No,
too, because you do have 5-year-old twins.
I do, and I don't know, Mark. You probably don't know this. My twins were actually born with an immune deficiency.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That I had, and my cousin had, and so because of that, so it's an immune deficiency that we outgrow at 2 years old. But the first 2 years of my life and my twins' lives, we didn't create antibodies. So the vaccines that people get didn't work for us. So because of that, we had to be careful with who my twins hung out with. We had a nanny, so they weren't in school. And I, at parks and stuff, just tried to make sure that they were safe. So people who don't vaccinate their kids, then when they do get sick, they could get my kids sick. Even though I want to vaccinate my kids, and I did vaccinate them, the vaccines didn't work. It didn't stick for them. They're now older. Their immune system has kicked in, so that's not an issue. But the idea behind vaccines is to have a herd vaccination, so that vaccines don't work 100% of the time. But if 100 people get vaccinated, then the 5% that it doesn't work for won't get sick because the disease won't spread. But if everybody is not doing what they should be doing, the vulnerable population, such as my kids and myself and my cousin when we were little, would have gotten sick. So I think it's sort of a societal responsibility that we want to protect each other. That's the society we're in, and that you should get vaccinated.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's even a spike right now of polio. Is that correct?
I don't know.
I read that recently, that there's a few cases of polio popping up because of anti-vaccinations.
Yeah. I mean, there's always measles I hear about getting popped up. And
then if the majority of the population doesn't get vaccinated, then it allows for those viruses to also incubate and mutate.
Yep. And then, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're back to square one.
Right. And all the people then would not have protection against the mutated forms.
And the theory that vaccinations cause autism, that's a big one,
So it has been disproven. It's been published that the person who did that research falsified data. That unfortunately does happen a lot in science. Like you said, it's a dog-eat-dog world, and some people take cuts and shortcuts to try to get ahead. But science always wins out, and we always figure out who plagiarized, who cut corners, who falsified data.
Now, isn't there a body of scientists that review things published in journals?
There are. There's two types of journals. There's just regular journals. The New York Times is a journal. But
so anyone can basically publish. If I wanted to publish a science study.
Yes. But there are peer-reviewed journals. And so those are the journals. There's something we call impact factor in science. And so the journals that are harder to publish in have a higher impact factor. And so these peer-reviewed journal means that at least 2, perhaps 3 scientists outside of your field, outside of your company, not associated with you at all, and anonymously read your manuscript, check it for mistakes, check it for falsified data, and allow it to be published, or allow it to be published with specific revisions, or reject it.
Are they required to do or replicate the testing?
Some journals they are. So there are journals we have in chemistry that are specifically around the practice of a specific reaction. And in those, you have to have 2 independent labs reproduce your results and get the same results that you got. And then it gets published. And so that has a really high impact factor, because we know if I go to that journal and I do the reaction, well, at least 2 other people have done it outside of that lab, and it works.
Okay.
But that isn't the case for a lot. So we actually had a review done at Amgen, and this has been published, that a lot of the biology models that people were following, we couldn't reproduce in-house. So It just depends on the field in the journal.
Yeah. And that's probably one of the biggest problems with science. As much as science is proving a lot of things, is the fact that people can really just come up with data on their own and publish it in smaller journals.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can do it, and a lot of and that happens.
Yeah. I mean,
But
like
I
that
don't
one.
read those journals.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
right now we're drinking a Malbec wine, and like that one journal report that came out that for every glass of wine you drink, it's like 1 hour in the gym, and they base it on the reserve. Let me see if I get this right. Resveratrol that's found in wine, but I actually pulled up the actual study that they based it off of, and no joke, you would have to drink about 15,000 bottles of
Yeah.
red wine
Yeah.
to get the same equivalent that they were injecting to mice.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this podcast short. For more podcast content, be sure to subscribe to all of our podcast channels on YouTube, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Libsyn, Castbox, Podbean, and literally anywhere else you listen to podcasts.